All right, we should be going live. Again, I'm just going to check to make sure that everything is up and running. But again, we're here live with Trung. We're going for a second session here, and hopefully we can ask some more questions that will give us some more insight and some great information about Axie and the current status, the current development status of how things are going. And it looks like we're good. Okay, we've already got people in the chat. Good to see you guys. Thanks for joining the stream. And Trung, for me, hey, thanks for the follow right off the bat. Trung, thanks for joining me today.
Yeah, of course, sure.
It's great to have you again, and I got just some great feedback. I know that the Axie community really loves hearing from you and hearing your input and what you have to say about Axie in the future. So, one thing that's been on my mind since we talked last, I did actually dust off my Hearthstone, by the way, and played and remembered some of how that went. It's been a minute. I used to play WoW TCG quite a bit too, among other trading card games. So it was kind of fun to do that again. But before we get into deck building and that type of stuff, I wondered if you could share some of your thoughts about just player-owned digital assets and the role there, and how you feel about player-owned digital assets.
So you're asking about what did you just say?
Like NFTs.
Play
Yeah.
our own? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like how the idea behind Axie where the players actually own the game assets.
I think I got cut out a little bit, but I think I got the questions, so I will go through it. So first of all, from a normal kind of product perspective, let's say if I'm just an average player, when I heard about NFT, suddenly I think generally the first thought I should have is that what is NFT? That's be a pretty obvious question to a lot of people out there. So normally when I explain to other people, I just don't use the word NFT. I just call them game characters and something like game assets, some kind of items in game also work too. So just also explain a little bit about how I think about that matters. So after all, I think they should have utilities. So we should be able to explain to others by saying about the utility, how people can use them to do certain things. So I think that should be the most important. Because when I was a child, I also drew a lot of artwork, kind of child artwork, not something too awesome, but at least I'm used to I'm really used to building things and creating things. So
Yeah.
I don't think there's any kind of special aspect about a game access in real life, except your personal feeling with them. So let's say if you can have the same feeling with NFT as we know about, that should be very kind of like special to us, to me, personally.
Yeah.
And let's say if you can bring them to an experience like a game, even other games outside of the original games universe, that sounds great to me, because I also have a characteristic, which is that I develop my personal feeling with my own things, my own assets.
Yeah.
Let's say I have a laptop. Eventually, even though when it's very old and it's kind of outdated, I just don't want to throw it away or sell it to anyone else. So that's about myself. So yeah.
Yeah, I
I don't
have
know,
a
like
shoebox with a whole bunch of old phones. I think I have one that goes, all the way back to one of my original, phones that has no, uh, software application ability. It's just, an old brick phone. Yeah. Yeah. That's
so.
awesome.
I think what I just said is like a pretty long answers, and it's like all over the place. But I guess that explain my thought, like how I think about NFT, both from like an outsider perspective. Let's say I explain NFT to someone else, like not a crypto friendly person, and how I feel about it, my personal.
Yeah. It's amazing. I go through my axes and I have a few of them. But, I could probably name a dozen or so of them, even beyond the three mystics that I have. Like what their parts are, uh, how cute they are, or how ugly they are, and
So yeah.
how much I like them. They're almost like,
So
yeah.
yeah. So one more example. So back in the days when I was still playing CryptoKitties, so actually I have like around 1,000 kitties. And at
Wow.
one point when CryptoKitties introduced the offer feature, I also received like maybe not so many, but like at least some offers because I also have some kind of like pretty early kitties. But then I don't know. I feel I just don't want to sell them,
Yeah.
whatever the cost is, because I mean I really value the time, the experience I have with them, and
Yeah. Yeah. I completely agree.
my own like story. So like even if the cost is like above the market or something, above the market price or something, I don't know. I just value my time, my effort, my personal emotion there. Like even like so
Yeah.
that's
Exactly.
one more example.
I was actually, I had just kind of a quick chat with Jiho. Um, I had read an article about his experience with World of Warcraft long ago, and
Mhm.
kind of running into digital asset property troubles. And I've long been an advocate for digital asset ownership and, being able to use the digital assets that you acquire in gaming. And I think it's actually just a something important. It's a revolution for gamers to be able to have an experience that Axie allows through the NFT. So again, thanks Trung for your involvement in this and changing the way I believe that gaming is happening. So thank you.
I think it could sound a little bit selfish, I guess, but the first reason why I made Axie, I created Axie, I started making Axie, not just like I created myself, but the reason why I started creating Axie together with others is that I did it for me first. I really wanted to do that, and and then I just jumped into.
Yeah, that's awesome. So in that space this morning, I think Ethereum gas was in the medium. I think it was over 400 and I think 50. Crazy. And at the same time, I think I noticed this morning that small love potions were just spiking in value. Um, and so I know there's a lot of people anxious to see Ronan, not only to solve some of those things, but also to me it seems like that may encourage or assist us in being able to hold and manage our digital assets. Do you see Ronan as solving some of these challenges, and what do you think about Ronan? What can you tell us?
So to be honest, I think out there's a lot of other parties like racing racing on the track of who would create like the next generation blockchain first, right?
Yeah.
So it's like who the who are who get there first. But then we don't have that kind of we don't have that kind of goal when we started working on Ronin. I think our main goal would be how to best serve uh, our current games, and of course in the future there will be more. But then yeah, because uh, we also play like CryptoKitties in like back then. This was like the gas price back then was so high, but it's nothing compared to what we have right now.
Right.
So I think we really understand what you guys are having, like what kind of experience you are having with Axie. Then because of that, we really want to solve the problem, like how we could have a smoother experience with the game, and that's why we started making Ronin. I would say right now Ronin. I mean, we have done the like most of the development part, but working on the chain is not just about coding. We still have to build some tools around the chain. Right now, like internally, we also have a block explorer. We also have like a Ethereum bridge. So sort of like pretty complete, I would say.
That's
But
awesome.
then, yeah, after all those, we still need some kind of like audit, I guess. We still need a proper review in order to get them out. I
Yep.
think the next step would be having a testnet up and running, so we can like if we all can like at least test the technology and try to have some experience with it, and then see if we have any issues with the chain. Uh, if there's anything we want that could be like we want to roll in out like, as soon as possible.
Right.
So just
That
to let you guys know.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I love the team's commitment to making sure that when things roll out that it's going to be usable, and not only just usable, but it's going to be, that it's going to work right and not going to create troubles. Yeah, I love it.
Yeah, I think like some of the things could be seen as our standard because without a proper like log explorer, like what we had with Loom, even though it has like the block explorer, but it's almost unusable. So block explorer is like a form of showing transparency, and transparency is like that's 1 out of 2 like things we have to maintain. So yeah, we have to keep our standard in that regard.
That's awesome. And I know maybe this doesn't get talked a lot about, but I think it'd be good to hear from you. It's just kind of the question of how do you envision the collaboration between the player community and the Axie team moving forward? And maybe this is a little bit early to be talking about that, but um, I know that, for example, a governance token is envisioned. So
Mm-hmm.
how do you kind of see the role of the governance token and how that moves forward?
So I told my experience in the last sessions. I started as a community member, just as all of you, and the reason why uh, I want to start at Axie is that like I feel like I could do a lot of things better than what I have at that moment in time. And also sometimes I feel like not sometimes, but at that time like it was so crazy, and like almost all of my opinions like they just go to like nowhere. So I feel like I have to do something. Um, and like I personally, I don't want to see that kind of story repeat its own like again. Um, so that's why the communities is like like one of the most important part of what we have, the ecosystem we are building together. And like it's just like what if we don't have anything like a governance token? At the beginning, still think that like I still think that the ability of the core team to react quickly, to adjust quickly, to move without any kind of hesitation is very important. But over time, I think as the community grows, as we are like more familiar and we are like as we really understand like we understand deeply the core principle between the thing we are building and the control should be give to the community over time. It will be like a gradual process.
Well, I
But
love,
yeah,
yeah, I
it's very
love
important.
the word you used in that. I believe I heard you right, and that's family. And honestly, the community on Discord and you know, when it's positive, and then most of the time it's great and positive. This community is awesome, particularly compared to other gaming communities. I really like the way that you said that it's a family, um, in the sense that we're all excited about this Axie experience, and in that sense, what do you see as some of the best things that the community can do to support Axies and the Axie team?
Mm, so I think playing the games is definitely the most important thing, right? Because without uh, maybe something.
Are you still there, Trung?
Hear me right?
Yeah, I hear you. Yep.
Okay. Um,
We
yeah, I
we
think
are just talking
playing the
like
games is the most
we're completely across other sides of the world, so it's pretty amazing that we're able to do this at all.
check to see if there's any kind of connection issue. So yeah, playing the game should be the most important thing because without playing the game, even from outside, like let's say if we don't play the game ourselves, then we would have no input to even like improve it. Outside of that, I think creating content, I like recently, of course, that's not all I want to say, but recently, I really like the work at Axie Dawn. Um, I mean, it's not that we haven't thought about building kind of like those kind of things, but also at the same time, by seeing the actual result at like Axie Dawn, I think like let's say if we like read it, that would be the result could be different, and it might not represent what wanted best by the community. So I think because we all have different perspective, uh, then like even though we think about the same thing by having other individuals or other kind of like organizations working on providing content for the game, we could have a pretty like we could have a really complete ecosystem. So that's about creating content. Uh, mm, I mean, there's a lot of forms. There's a lot of forms of content, right? We could have some kind of like leaderboards, some kind of like statistic, because in this way, like data is king, and also um, there's a lot of other community members making like tutorials, guides, some guides, and videos. So they are all like helpful. Sometimes like when we when we see the result, all the creation from the communities, like we feel like maybe we don't have the same position to understand the problem from a player's perspective. So we also like learn a lot when we see the content from the communities. That's one thing I want to say about.
Yeah, I mean that's awesome to hear you say that, and it's good to have all the information out there. I know, you know, some of them that have helped me along have have just really allowed me to learn a lot more about the Axie universe and just how to play. You know, I just really appreciate a lot of the guys out there that have done it and given us guides and you know, onboarding information. And to be honest, Trung, like I've been very pleased that the team has been so responsive. Like your contributions in battle balancing recently, Jiho's interaction with the Discord community, it's great. And I just want to applaud the team, especially over the past few months for the communication that you guys have done. I think it's been really useful for the community. So thank you.
I think that's a very important. We have that's a very important things we have learned recently. Like sometimes we cannot know exactly what the community want because like I mean we are talking about the community as like as a single parties, but like in fact it's not something like that, right? We have a lot of people. We have a lot of like needs, right, within the community. And sometimes, at one point in the past, we started seeing the problem. So by providing information, by providing data, by providing like insights, info, so, first information, yeah, by providing enough information, I think the community like will know more about what is happening behind the scene, what the team is thinking about, what the team is working on, and then like the community can be proactively working on something they see useful. So yeah, I think there's two ways to see all the problems we have, all the problems like all the needs we have in the community. So so like not always we can to work on them ourselves. So we just try to give more information to keep like all of us on the same ground. So yeah, that's what we have done.
Yeah, and to point out a couple, like I was having some conversations with Dan, Daan, and Ivo is I think close with Dan, and that PVE, the player versus environment guide that he put out, you know, that was something that I hadn't really thought of, and he was very specific in wanting to develop teams that would be strong against the player versus environment side. So yeah, I really it is amazing to me the different aspects that the different community
What's
members
it? What
focus
his
on.
name again?
So it's Dan
What's his name again?
Daan Dan.
AAN, right?
Yeah, and then Ivo, and they did that player versus environment on Medium, the guide for player versus environment, and you know, to be honest, like that helped me out quite a bit. And I'll just while we're here, let's see if I can pull up my PVE team, and you know, I don't know if people would be able to tell right off the bat, but this is one that I designed specifically for PVE, that was based on a lot of the comments that Dan and Ivo and Jiho just posted the guide in the chat. Thanks, Jiho. And you know, it opened my eyes about you know, a different approach to getting further and finally with some of that information, I was able to beat 21. I think it's 21, the first boss level, and starting to move on. My son, he he beat the whole dang thing. I'm so I'm so ticked. I've been playing it for months longer than him, and he took that information and created a team and conquered all the way through the last level. I'm still leveling these dudes up, so it's still happening. But yeah, I love those comments. Thank you. So on that, I've got the Axie Zone, the Soichen Hund Axie Zone site up. Hey all in the chat, thanks for joining us. And I wanted to ask you a little bit more about something we talked about in terms of like deck building and maybe version 2 battling. In the sense of, so when you were first talking about it, I wasn't in Hearthstone mode, so I wasn't thinking about like tempo and aggro and control decks, but I got myself back into that frame of mind, played a little bit of Hearthstone. How do you see those sorts of deck building aspects working into version 2 battling?
This is pretty like broad questions, I could say.
And while you're thinking about that, Trung, looking over kind of the class win rates on Axie Zone, and I've got that up here on the stream, and then some of the card usage statistics, maybe do those sorts of things play into, your approach to version 2 battling?
So regarding the win rate of different classes, so in the previous version of the battle system, the Edo battle system, I think we have a much higher win rate for Buck, because at the time I think Buck provide more accuracy and also Buck provide more like HP. So it's a pretty nice composition for Buck class. And people tend to have Buck body on the damage dealer, because it's more reliable. And also it can the survivability of Buck is but right now, like I also took a look at Axie Zone, and I can see that like Buck right now is not so prominent. Like I have three kind of like I think people call them like rare class. So out of three rare class, Bird, Reptile, and Buck, we always see that Bird is getting like some points here, right? And for Reptile and Buck body, we don't see them too often. Talking about like body parts, I think body parts don't have that big of a difference, right? Because I think because body parts like depend more on the logic itself for them to be viable. So previously we saw a lot of tiny dino, right?
Yeah.
Just because of the body parts logic. It's not because of it's not solely because of the class behind the body parts. Because like if reptile body parts would have the same kind of love as reptile body, then we should have seen no reptile body parts on the battlefield. So
right.
Yeah, that's also what I thought when I started making model version 2. Maybe we should get into some like kind of detailed move mechanics.
Yeah.
So I can explain more.
Yeah. So I think that's a great idea. And I definitely want you to go where you want to go in talking about move mechanics. But one thing I just wanted to point out, and it kind of is illustrated on Axie Zone, is you see kind of the top maybe 15 moves, even though plant is the third most used, which is not surprising. You see that boy, I think it's, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, like maybe 7 of the top 12 moves as far as use are plant moves. So they must be plant moves on other axes, like reptile. I would expect. Um,
Mhm.
and in the top two, and to some extent, Ronin maybe is an energy manipulation if it's combined with Imp.
Aim. Yeah.
Um, but we see a lot of energy. At least at the very top, we have the top two being an energy manipulation type of ability. So
Mhm.
yeah, are there, one thing I guess we could kick it off with is the change to critical escape wall gecko. Um,
So you want to start with wounded go first?
yeah, why don't we? Let's talk about that because it was a significant change in how that ability works.
Uh, so yeah. So Jeff worked on the change, and I think overall is it's a bit better. Mm. But what I don't like about the change is that it kills the characteristic of the body parts because we normally see winged geckos as like pretty the same as other reptiles. Can sacrifice its tail in order to escape. So, like, even if we don't talk about the move logic itself, I really want to keep the idea and the characteristic of the move. Maybe it could be phrased in the move logic could be phrased in a different way, so we can still give the kind of like the show of the body parts. So that's what I, I want to do. Other than that, I don't have any significant comments on the logic change. Uh, Outside of the only thought that like I think it's a little bit better with it
Yeah, so as far as play
or
as
PvP.
far as play goes, I would agree. I happen to be one of the very rare few that had wall gecko on one of my main Axie team, and it was an interesting play style because I could pretty much only um, play it, when I was fairly certain I wasn't going to get hit, or if I had really low hit points, so it wasn't going to trigger. But every now and then you die to a couple of Nemos and uh, thorns, or some zero cost attack that all of a sudden your Axie's dead because of the prior way that it calculated its damage. Um, but I think that the change to kind of a percentage reduction um, is a pretty significant change, and
Mhm.
one that I like the idea of it, and I think I've already mentioned this in battle balancing, but um, kind of moving away from well, I don't know. I guess I'd like to hear your thoughts. Do you feel like moving to more kind of across the board damage reductions, or maybe across the board damage bonuses styles of attributes is a way to go, or is that something that still you're considering?
Um, so I think they can generally they can all be considered as like some kind of power accumulation over multiple like turns and rounds, right? I think in this current battles we don't have so many moves with that mechanic. Normally, the only things you can do is that to deal some damage, like have some shield in that in a certain round. So
Right.
It's
Some of the buffs
also
have
related to
attack plus and morale plus, and so I mean those kind of have a backdoor way of increasing some of those bonuses, right?
yeah, right. But for some really like kind of like powerful buff and debuff, normally we don't have them uh, get to the next round. For example, like stench, we only have stench
Right.
for one turn, right? Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that makes it maybe a little bit less powerful of a card, but you know, serves its purpose sometimes, kind of like double talk, right? Um, it might.
But you know the reason why those type of moves are not so prominent is because so let's say so to me like energy is also a form of resource and buff or any other type of power accumulation would also be considered as like forms of resource. But
Yeah.
of course, when we talk about resource, it's mostly about like mana, about like energy, right?
Yep.
And actually, in this current battle system, in the current battle system, we have energy as a type of resource that can be accumulated over multiple rounds already. So it's pretty hard to create like more moves which have that power accumulation mechanic because then sometimes you would be left with maybe a lot of energy and you don't want to do anything because uh, you want to solve the match. You want to accumulate power to your but you don't want to accumulate a power to your axis because you want to bank energy to do a very big combo. It's also a little bit related to uh, the way we phrase attacks in this skill rebuttal system, because by banking energy, you could have a lot of resource to create like attacks which are not proportionally powerful as the things you can only do with one energy. So let's say if you have two energies as you can it's not just like 1x more power 1x powerful attack. It can be even like 3x, even 4x if you do it correctly.
Oh yeah.
So I can say that the current battle system, or the like maybe more precise, the current meta just favor power accumulation over the form of move mechanic, only via the form of energy. So,
Yeah. So I
so
mean,
that's
one
why
thing. Yeah.
we want
Go ahead.
That's why we wanted to experiment a little bit with power accumulation via One Gecko. I didn't talk about One Gecko specifically, but yeah, I told you that we want to experiment a little bit with some other kind of like mechanic because like I think we have a lot of different mechanics with the version 2 of the battle system. So we just want to introduce like some, so maybe you guys can be familiar with them like earlier, and also to test our assumption because in the process of making the next battle system, we have to make a lot of assumptions, and they shouldn't be like all correct, right?
Right.
Otherwise, they would not be assumption.
Yeah. I mean, I do feel that you know, a lot of times it feels like. Well, I'm glad to hear that you're talking about survivability because I mean, I think I tend to. I guess would this be a control or would it be aggro where you know I'm almost trying to kill their tank, their frontliner in the very first round, and I can tell they're trying to do the same thing, and it does get pretty frustrating when the right combination of birds plus zero cost energy cards is enough to kill my tank first round. And I assume that's part of what you're talking about with respect to survivability.
So like I said, it's because the current meta favors like big damage combo, like a lot, right?
Right.
Uh, with the way we with the way we the way we with the way we put move mechanic, the current meta just favor that kind of thing very much. And sometimes it's just boiled down to uh, who can pick the right combo at the right time. Let's say if you skip the first round and the other side, your opponent just like draw all the needed cards in order to kill your tank immediately. It just doesn't feel right. It's also because the damage, like all the number calculation, is not 100% correct, right?
Right.
Because in the worst case, it shouldn't be like that, but it should be very, very hard, like nearly impossible to do a one hit, like something like a combo, like one combo knockout in the first round. It should be nearly impossible. Right now, like I mean, it's still hard, but it's not at that level of uncertain.
Yeah, and so
So
wall gecko for me kind of addressed that. So if I have wall gecko on my front tank, it's a lot harder for them to one shot me in the first round. But then again, that comes down to kind of random chance as to whether or not I drew that card or they chose to pummel me in the first round.
yeah, but yeah, like I said, like that problem shouldn't be there at the first place, right? The other side shouldn't have the ability to kill your tank in the first round at all. Like that is it's a very, 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 very small chance. Uh, like in 1 million match, for example, it should just be one match. Your opponent could do that because like, he's super lucky or something. But yeah, right now it doesn't feel right to me. So that's my personal opinion.
No, I
And
like
in
that
fact,
a lot. I do know that it can change the pacing of the game a lot. So I'm excited for the comments that you've said about version 2 battling kind of having a quicker pace.
mm, yeah, I mean, it's not uh, it's not in, it's not entirely true
Okay.
because I think yeah we faster pace, but it's not like so at the beginning, right? Um, so the current battle system we have has a pretty um, like constant pace. You have the same pace at the beginning since the beginning of the battle to the end of the battle, but like the pace of a battle shouldn't be constant like that. It should be increasing. So of course we would have a faster pace at the end of a battle in the new battle system, but at the beginning, like it should be slower.
Yeah.
So yeah, you remember like the example we just went through, right?
Right.
In third round, like your opponent shouldn't be able to kill your tank. Uh,
Right.
I mean, um, it's not math, but I mean, intuitively, it should be enough.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so I'm going to ask you about just kind of some general play style or play aspects and ask you to just kind of give comments on them. So, again, you may disagree with the statements that I'm making, and then you tell me what you think about it. So, critical strikes, are they out of hand, or is it something that people just need to find better strategies to counter?
So to me personally,
Yes, I'm asking hard
I
questions.
No, funny question. I could say like funny to me because this is also a thing I thought about a lot. So to me personally, I really like the emotional aspect of Critical Strike. The way it brings some kind of adrenaline boost to the game. I really enjoy that kind of thing. But other than that, I think in a competitive game, of course, we are not that high level of competitive, but at least in a competitive game, let's say if I really want to enjoy it, then I just don't want to see something too random like Ghost Strike. Uh,
No, I mean
Also, one problem
I've
people
played
mentioned a
somebody
lot.
who had confident and was just pumping up their morale, and just
Mhm.
about every attack that beast made was a critical. And to be honest, like I applaud to that player because they found a way to boost their morale in a way that gave them a more reliable critical strike. So I'm not necessarily complaining. I'm just kind of wondering, like when a bird manages to crit me 2 or 3 times a game, it's a
Mhm,
little
mhm.
hard, right?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of there's so many things I want to talk when it comes to critical strike. The first thing is that it's random to me, and I don't want that level of random. Um, Randomness is also one thing people mention a lot in Hearthstone, and I also don't like randomness in Hearthstone. Of course, we want a certain level of randomness, but not too much, right? So that's the first thing about critical strike. The second thing about critical strike is that in a game with like damage and shield in like kind of like additive um, mechanism like Axie. So normally in other games, RPG for example, let's say if you have a certain number of ammo, it just multiplicatively um, uh, subtract your it just multiplicatively reduce your taken damage, right?
Yeah.
But in Axie, it's not multiplicative. It's additive. So let's say a 2x critical strike damage is 2x compared to normal damage. So like subtract the number of shield, and I feel like it's too much because the actual strike you don't have the necessary shield to prevent that. So like if we can run back, if we can go back in time and correct it, I think something like 2.6 should be a better spot, like the best spot I would say personally. 2.6. Like if we want it to be more emotional, then it could be like 2.75. Other than that, like if we want it to be not so devastating, it could be 2.5, 1.5. So that's what I think about the damage of critical strike, and also like a little bit of science behind critical strike in Axie and in other games.
Yeah, and I like
Mm,
that. And I've wondered sometimes if maybe skill shouldn't drive that multiplier, or something, I guess, or maybe even just the morale attribute as well. Anyway.
I mean, multiply. I think multiplication is okay. It's just that like it has to be balanced. So shield and damage they are not multiplicative. So I don't think like critical strike uh, being multiplicative like it is right now, like 2x. It's a multiplier, right? So
Yeah.
it just doesn't feel right to me. Like, not mathematically right. So
Right. All right. Well, let's move on to the next one. There's lots of things we could talk about, but so energy play. It seems to me like that is a gigantic factor right now, and that kind of goes to the main resource, the main chain of play. You would say. Do you feel like the energy gain cards, energy steal cards, energy destroy cards? Do you feel like those are hitting about the right balance, or do you feel like there's some work that needs to be done with regard to energy manipulation?
So so let's separate them into two different kind of like issues, two different problems. The first problem which I want to keep aside right now, which is energy stealing. And the second problem which I want to talk about first is energy manipulation in general, something which doesn't affect your opponent like steal, but something like something like energy gain, out of that, more about energy gains, I could say. So at one point in the past, when I thought about energy manipulation, I just thought that like they are broken. Uh, but yeah, yeah, I think when I researched more and when I thought about energy manipulations mechanisms more, um, I found out that it's not energy manipulation that broken. Um, Actually, energy manipulation can still be tricked in terms of like numbers balancing. But the problem with energy is that like we have energy as a non fine grained resource type of resource, right? Something like you
Right.
have only one energy, two energy, three energy. Like you gain two energy around in PvP, so it's very hard to balance energy because it's just like either you don't have that mechanism, right? You have zero energy gain, or you have one energy gains at least. So it's very hard to balance. Uh, so so after that kind of conclusion, I tend to blame the number rather than the mechanic.
Ah, okay.
So
That
I
makes
thought
sense.
that's what I thought about. But of course, like if we still keep with if we still keep that kind of like energy manipulation mechanisms the same, then I don't think we can even trick numbers to make it more balanced, right? Because we cannot trick something like energy. Like we can, you cannot make it like 0.5 something. It's just not possible. Uh,
Well, hey,
not
I've been an
possible
advocate
to
for a,
expect.
a broader energy pool with different cost cards. Have you thought about that? I know that that would be a substantial change, but if the energy pool is greater but cards
Uh,
cost various amounts.
so I actually thought about that solution, and at the end, it is one of the solution which I crossed out, and
Yep.
I feel that we don't want to go with it. There's a lot of reasons with having uh, energy cost other than like zero, one, and two. Even two, we don't have many both with two energy cost right now. Um,
No, and I
Let
understand because that would
me
create a
remember.
significant level of complication, right? And one thing we want is a simple, a deep game, but a simple game.
So one thing I can reveal, not reveal, but I mean one thing I can talk about comfortably right now, uh, because I can give enough information is that like when we have energy cost higher than two, it makes the game more uh, more like Hearthstone.
Mm,
I will give an example to make it more clear.
right.
So in Hearthstone, when you have like a card with like six energy cost and six mana cost or seven mana cost, normally you have to to wait for a long time to be able to play those cards,
Oh
right?
yeah. Yep.
And then you have to change the one of the core aspect of the game completely. And and that kind of resource, that kind of mana you have, like the only thing you need to do is to wait. And and uh, and I don't like that personally, because like, let's say if you can defend against your opponent for the first like 6 turns, then suddenly in the seventh turn, you won't be able to use that 7 mana cost card. Uh, so I mean, I really want to keep like that kind of resource saving the same, but I don't want resource saving to be done by waiting. So I really want the games to have like non-ending interaction between two sides of the battle. And so at the end, I want to solve that problem. I mean, in a generally same way, but but it has to explain without giving
Yeah.
some information.
Yeah,
But yeah,
sure. And one thing I've thought about was switch it to be more of like a steal chance as opposed to 100% of the time serious steals and energy from the opponent if they have an energy point to steal.
no, I mean, I haven't talked about energy steal first. I just talk about having like higher energy cost card, and the reason why I mean, like it's one of the solution, but it's not the best solution. That's what I can talk about. So I think, yeah, I think you guys understand the problem. I also understand the problem, and I think I have a better solution for the problem compared to the solution which we create like higher energy cost cards.
Sweet. I think we're all just excited to see what you provide, what the next battling looks like. So the next one, I'll go ahead and leave energy for now, and the next one is like
I think I can give like one or two sentences about
yeah, go
energy
ahead.
still.
Yeah,
Uh, I think energy still without complex setup, it's just broken. I mean, it would be very annoying to have your opponent suddenly steal your energy and you cannot do anything to counter it. So one element of interactivity within an interactive game like Axie is that you need to be able to counterplay, right? Like you
yes,
don't want to have anything that you cannot actively counter.
correct. Yeah, I love that. Yeah, was there?
So of course, I think you guys found out some ways to counter energy steal. Do something like play around with the axis speed to have like slower axis or something, or to have certain combos which spend like every energy you have. So I think, yeah, I could say good work around, but it's still annoying.
Well, yeah, no, thank you for those thoughts, and we're looking forward to
And
it.
I'm not a fan of giving chance to something like energy steal. I mean, I'm not a fan of giving chance to things in general, to think in battle in general, because like as I said, I don't want that level of randomness inside a game like Axie. I mean, we can, but we definitely can do better than that.
Oh, hey, I'm a big proponent of strategic decisions over random chance and luck having too big of a factor. When I look at two games that I want to play, I would much prefer to play uh, chess than Yahtzee, even though they're both fun. But I tend to be more of a strategy game guy. But I can respect people who like luck games as well, randomness. So yeah, I like it. So maybe moving on then, what do you think about control cards as they currently stand? Stun, fear, that type of stuff. Do you think that that they're kind of in the right spot, or is there more that needs to happen with respect to those style of cards? You know, tiny turtle, I think of snail shell, and then the bunny and the balloon.
So I'm not saying that they are all balanced, right? There's something there's something that are certainly more powerful than necessary. But I share your opinion. I share your opinions that I really want to see those mechanics appear appearing more in our battle system. So there's also one thing I push for in the next battle system, and actually buff and debuff. That's not the only way of introducing kind of like control effects like that to the game. Mm, We even have more ways to do that. So yeah, I
Awesome.
think you guys will know.
No, I'm just excited for the. I can tell that I'm prying just the right amount to get a little bit of information from you, little nuggets of, obviously, Trung, you've thought about all these things. I can tell, and it's I'm just excited now, even more so than before, about the new battling system. And Igorki asked about leaks, but mostly we've been just talking about kind of the battle system, and just kind of general stuff. I'm still going to get to the community questions. You're not going to be let off the hook, Trung. We're going to try to see what we can pry out of you. But before we move on to that, there was one more type of card that I wanted to discuss and see how you felt about them. Actually, there's two more. Sorry. Healing cards and generally, I guess, support cards. Do you see more of a role for more of a dedicated support style of Axie on your team? I think of Silence Whisper, and the utility of that card is, I mean, if used right, it can be pretty useful still. But I think it may be one of the only cards that is only support. You know what I'm saying?
So so actually, there's some scientific aspects behind support cards. Actually, like most of them belong to a certain playstyles. So you know what it is?
So kind of like tempo, like a poison style, where you're
Yeah,
trying to
yeah,
outlast.
yeah, yeah, exactly. So yeah, I thought about. I mean, so when we go on playstyles to certain card mechanics, we can see that some kind of talking about every single support card, but something like healing cards, they belong to something like tempo playstyle. And so just by having that kind of thinking in mind, I think we can be more clear about how we want to create more mechanics around them and how we want to see them in action in battle, and how we want to put certain numbers on them to make them balanced.
Yeah, I mean,
Um,
I think it would be super cool to see a support card that could deliver shield to another Axie or to the team or something like. I mean, there are a couple of them, right?
mhm.
I can't remember the name of it that surrounding Axies gain some shield. Golly, I can't remember the name of that particular card. But
So yeah, I think
is it
I
Red Ear?
can
Is
talk
that
about the new mechanic, the new mechanic of strawberry shortcake. Just to give an example on support pack. So the current strawberry shortcake, we have it at 2 energy cost, right? And you can heal your front axis. And if there isn't any front axis, then it just heals the axis which has strawberry shortcake instead, right?
right?
So when I think about strawberry shortcut, in the current energy system, I think sometimes you don't want to spend like two energy at once, right? Right? Just to heal your axis because um, there's a lot of case your strategy could go wrong, especially because I mean um, you don't know exactly what your opponent think about the current situation on of the battle,
Right.
and you can not guess them exactly. So there's a lot of things there's a lot of ways for your strategy to go wrong. So still we want to keep it at the two energy cost because we want people to think about it carefully when they want to use strawberry shortcut. We want people to think whether they want to do an upfront investment like that.
Yep.
But after you use a strawberry shortcut, you will add two cups on into your hand, and uh, I don't think I need to give details, but each strawberry shortcut card could be used on any of your axes, so they could be thought as a silent whisper at some sense, right?
Right.
So you still need to do some upfront investment, but then the result they can use them at anytime you want. So it also gives an example of something like resource accumulation, right? Let's say sometimes you have like more energy than you need, and you can convert that amount of energy into certain cards in your hand in form of something like silent whisper cards, which you can use on any kind of like allied axis. So
Yeah.
it might not sound too clear, but yeah, I just want to relate a little bit to that power accumulation thing I talked about
Yeah.
earlier.
No, I like it. It sounds good. And again, it just makes me more and more excited for version 2 battling to see what we're gonna what it's gonna look like. And so the last card kind of style that I wanted to ask you about is the multi-hit cards. Cards like Furball and some of the like Twin Tail if they're done right. Do you feel like those play enough of a role in the current battle system? Are those going to get some love, or are they fine where they're at?
I think in the current battle system, they are just like barely okay. So back in the days when we have a lot of poison teams, I think they serve a function which is to stall um, to give more time for your poison charge to take. Because for Furball, for example, it deals like 3 hits, so your poison charge can take like 3 times. So it's good already. Uh, but right now, because we don't see poison teams that often, and if I recall correctly, there's also one point in time with like something like some multi-hit move. Just don't make your poison check uh, take more. So if I recall correctly,
Right.
uh, I think right now I think they are under average, but with more strategy evolving something like evolving multi-hit coming to play, I think they like even if we keep them as what they are right now, we don't need to make any change to them. But if we introduce some more kind of like mechanics related to multi-hit, they will be viable.
Right.
But
So Bronzebeard in the chat, he asked a question that I think is worth asking. And maybe it's one you can't respond to yet, but I haven't asked it directly, so I think it's a good one to ask you. and that is, are
Mhm.
there going to be kind of like standard cards or utility cards that will be kind of available across the board to teams as we look at version 2 battling, or are the cards still going to remain limited to the particular parts that the Axies have?
So I think I talked a lot about changing a bottle base, and also like how to how to how to introduce more strategic decisions and something like power accumulation in battle. And actually, one of the solutions to add into that is something like utility cap, right? Because with utility cap, you are not bound with you are not bound by 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 move your actually have, right? Three of your actually have. You can like be more flexible with your strategy. It's like even if your opponents uh, clearly see three of your axes, you can still add like some surprise element into your execution of strategy. And also with proper utility card, you can even change your strategy, your playstyle like completely. So I see something like I see utility cards as a way uh, for for uh, for battle for players to be more flexible with their strategy, and also to defend against the face of having a bad matchup. So
Yeah.
they are definitely important, and we will slowly introduce them into the battle system.
Haha, so that is a little bit of a leak. That's awesome. Cool. Utility cards. Fantastic. All right.
It's not something new. Actually, I think we set up to the community, but how to do it and when to do it. Previously, we don't have an answer, but with the new battle system, we want to eventually do it.
Awesome. No, that's fantastic. And I guess that it's planned for me is more of what I was talking about, being on track for something you're considering. That's awesome. I love it. Okay, so I think that I've gone through everything in the battling stuff that I wanted to make sure I covered with you from our last group. So our last session. So I have some community questions that were asked that I'd like to see if you can respond to. Um, the one of them I received is more of, I guess they're asking, what do you see a bit further down the road? Um, and for me, this was a little bit tough because I know we're still trying to get to some of the releases that are still slated, that are still coming. But they asked, are there any ideas being tossed around for the next steps after Land Play and Ronin are fully launched?
Yeah, I think I saw the questions somewhere, and I think I had some time to think about it. But then I noticed that I don't have a detailed answer for that. So I try to answer it as good as I can. So I think we all know that the land gameplay is not only a game, right? It's also a foundation for us to create more uh, experience on top of it. So after land, after I mean, Ronin is necessary because without something like Ronin, we cannot have we cannot have a smooth land gameplay, right? We like in the land gameplay we are picturing, we are framing, um, even though even though we don't see the actual gameplay yet. I mean, we all know that it will be pretty complex, it will be pretty complicated. So without Ronin, we cannot do that kind of that kind of thing on video game. It's just not feasible.
Right.
So of course Ronin is necessary, but then like let's say if we have Ronin, if we have land, of course the next step would be to create even more things on top of land. Like so in the last session I talked a little bit about Project L, like the first game other than land on Ronin, and also the first kind of like game on land. So we definitely want to push for for more games ourselves, and also we need to I think we need to get the SDK out the door, and it's not an easy task
Yeah.
because then with the SDK, it's not only us can build things on land, yeah, but also others can build too. So I think that should be our next focus. And of course, I mean, I think we have a lot of ideas. We have a lot of things in mind. We want to build on top of land. If you guys think about land and battle, I think you guys can consider battle as like another game on land actually. So land is a pretty meta thing. And it's not like a game at the same level as model. But model is a thing on top of land. It makes more sense.
Yeah. No, that
So
makes a lot of sense.
first, so personally, I have a lot of ideas I'm excited about. Like at some point, I really want to make like every genre of game I can think about, like tower defense, something of like
Oh man,
tactical battle.
yes. Wow.
Then I mean, yeah, but no, yeah, right now we are all in ideas. We are pretty like uncertain when it comes to specific ideas we want to build. But we know for sure that like we want to build a lot of fun things on top of land. So yeah, of course after land we will have more fun things. We'll build more fun things. Just
And and that
yeah.
relates, Trung, to a different question that I have, I think, and that is the question I had was, can you tell us more about Luna Landing and what's planned there? I do know that there are a few members of the community that kind of qualify to own a part of Luna Landing based on um, getting the items that they needed to by a certain date. But also, if I understood the materials right, Luna Landing's kind of this place where third parties and others are going to be able to kind of host and put content that is playable. Is that still the plan, or what can you tell us about Luna Landing?
So I think at early stage of the land game, Luna Landing is used for hosting like a very powerful chimera because because at the beginning there's no kind of like there's are no projects available, right? We just don't have any. So Luna's Landing will be used for chimera, something like dungeons for
Right.
for rare risotto, sort of that. But over time, I think we will have more projects to be built on land. Uh, so generally, Luna's Landing could also be considered as a pink area on the map.
Okay.
So in the map right now, Luna's Landing is colored in red, right?
Yep.
And for resort node, they are colored in pink. But like I said, like at the beginning, Luna's Landing will be used for Chimera, for resource nodes. So they are not significantly different. So, but what is different about Luna's Landing is that like we want to make them more special. We want to put like the coolest thing in Luna's Landing, and that includes like beginning, of course, Chimera Resource Node. After that, there will be other type of like games, other type of project. And right now, actually, we haven't spent a lot of time on Luna's landing. But yeah, in a nutshell, I think like just put all the core things in Luna's landing.
Yeah, awesome. That makes a lot of sense. That's exciting. It also kind of affects travel time and so forth too. We already talked about that though, so I won't go back into travel time on the map. But one question I think various
Yeah,
people have asked
because
me. Yeah, go ahead.
right now, right now we have only 1/4 of the map, right? Uh, I also have an idea, which is when we have other borders of the map, like two opposite sides of the map can just battle with each other in
Wow.
Luna's Landing. That's also a possibility.
Dang,
But yeah,
that's awesome.
we, like I said, we haven't spent a lot of time thinking about Luna's Landing. Uh, so, yeah, just
Regions
my idea.
battling for
But
control or wow, that's a cool
yeah.
idea. One question that I had on that, I guess, is since there is only a quarter of the map that's released, is the entire map going to be opened up to exploration or only the portions that have been released?
Only the current portion will be open. You cannot travel to other portions yet. Um, they can be opened later when we are ready, right? Right
Yep.
now, like the most important focus should be getting content, getting the land gameplay out, and then after we can think about opening other portions.
Right. And that is another question people have asked, and that is, when other quadrants would potentially be released. And I think you've answered that multiple times, and I think that makes a lot of sense. So just to switch tracks, because there was a question in the chat, and that is, and I think I know the answers to these, but I'll let you answer it. Has Axie Infinity done any commercial advertisement yet? Will they ever? And if they will do commercial advertising, is it going to be after the full release of Land Play?
It depends on the definition. There's something I think we have done some kind of like campaigns here and there, right? Whether they can be whether they could be considered commercial advertisement is not really clear to me. Uh,
Like some of
but
the partnerships
yeah,
with some of the other groups and so forth, right?
yeah. It's not that we have to pay anything, but they could also be considered a form of advertisement, right? Like different kind of like um, growth, some kind of that. And so our so the way we think right now is that we don't want to spend money on advertisement yet. Why? Because it's just logical. Because right now we don't see the game at a like kind of like feasible state to open up to a lot of people. Let's say we can advertise to those people, then there would be a lot of people we cannot retain, and even like earlier than that we cannot like get them
Yeah.
to even play the game
Right.
because right now there's a lot of steps you will have to go through in order to play the game. You need to have like you need to generate your wallet. You need to buy cryptocurrency. You need to install MetaMask. If you didn't use MetaMask to generate your wallet, and also um,
And pay gas.
go
Don't
to that,
forget that.
yeah, yeah, very fast, and you have to go to the community alpha site in order to. Yeah, even before that, you need to get like 3x and stuff.
Right.
If if you yeah, just a lot of steps. So I don't think right now the games is a feasible state for normal like kind of like non-crypto players. So we want to fix those issues first. We want people to get to the game really easily. And then after that, I mean, it's like in marketing, it's called like a funnel. If you can build an effective funnel, you can just like put something like marketing advertisement into one side of the funnel, and then you can get a really good result on the other side. But before we can build that funnel successfully, I don't think we want to push much for advertisement. Of course, right now there's a lot of crypto-friendly players get to the game like every day, and I think it's cool. But yeah, we need to do even better than that.
Well, so and talking about that, the funnel for sure. I think that the pump of SLP and like I said, SLP seem to be significantly on the rise again today. Um, I guess could you maybe talk about tokenomics if you think it makes sense? Like when we have a small love potion, it kind of seems like there's an idea that there may be a medium love potion or a large love potion, and then also with land, I think it's been kind of talked about how some of these resources are going to be tokenized as well. How do you see that impacting the overall tokenomics and then we have the governance token and we have Ronin. Um, can you give us some insight on? I mean, I know the team's going to be careful about how they do all these things, but um, I guess what do you think about the tokenomics overall with potentially having a whole bunch of different resource tokens, and will it have a significant effect on small love potions?
So for the name smaller potion, so you guys all notice that right now the necessary amount of SLP to use in breeding, they are all divisible by 100, right? So that time like I just want to have something like small love potion, uh, like medium love potion, and large love potion. And for example, when you want to breed two axes, which was like let's say 200, and you can just play with two large love potion.
Right.
It's just yeah, it's just the idea behind the name a small love potion. But the reason why we didn't want to start with something like large love potion at first, or like just simply love potion at first, is because we want something um, at a more fine-grained unit than that. Like, let's say if you can use uh, just two uh, just two love potion to breed Axie, then
Right.
we cannot have like smaller reward after a battle, right? So that's why we started with love potion first. Um, but yeah, so that's the first aspect of your question about the name. Other than that, regarding tokenomics, so from what I can see, the tokenomics in the land system would be very, very complicated. And like it's a headache to me actually to 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 think about like a lot of aspects to make sure that we don't uh, we don't go wrong with the tokenomics in the land system. So our approach is that we will slowly introduce more and more token into the ecosystem. I mean, I just call them token, but actually they are just like different type of gain resource. Uh, so 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 it's easier to think about them that way,
Right.
right? Easier to understand.
And I think we talked about this last time, but those presumably will have some relation to the new Luna. And you'd be welcome to tell us the name of that new Luna token, if you feel like.
I'm not sure. I don't know if I can tell. I can tell that. I'm not sure if we are ready in terms of revealing the name. Uh, Sorry, maybe I'm too deep into other kind of other thinking group, so I'm not really stuck with how ready we are in terms of that.
No worries.
But you're talking about Luna, because in the land system we have a lot of type of resource. We have a lot of tokens. So of course there should be like there should be a universal type of resource, right? Like
Yep.
a base type of resource you can exchange other type of resource into. Um, so that's one of the reasons why we need to have Luna. Other than that, like there could be some other features like governance. So it's also necessary to have a native token for the Axie ecosystem.
Awesome.
And yeah, I think there should be more to come. But they're mostly about like the utility of Luna within the ecosystem, the land system.
Right. One of the questions that was asked is what aspect has been the team's biggest focus while testing land?
Yeah, I also saw this question somewhere. Uh, so in this happens in several like phase. So right now, let's say we are it's not the first phase anymore, but let's say like the first public phase, like the first phase you can or you can know about. The first phase will be public, something like that. I think for the first phase, um, we have several kind of like constraints for our land system to be able to be released. Um, it needs to be it needs to be beautiful. So that's one of the constraints. I'm
Yeah.
not sure if we can push it to a perfect state, but at least it needs to meet a certain standard in terms of aesthetic. So that's the first constraint. Second, it has to be connected to others. I mean, so I think in the last session I talked
You did.
about that constraint, right?
Yep.
The land systems uh, needs to be connected to PVE bottles. That's what I said in the last session.
Correct. Yep.
The third constraint, uh, that I think I also talk about it. We should like the land system should have like primitive building blocks. So those primitive building blocks will be used to demonstrate to people like some very basic elements of land gameplay. And also for us, those primitive building blocks will be used for for building more advanced features in the future. So yeah, three constraints, and we have to certify them all before we can release the land system. So I could call them three most important things. So we don't have just one thing, but yeah, three constraints.
And
I really like the current state of the land system, but yeah.
so, and those three things, is are we talking about the PVE, the resource gathering, and is it crafting would be the third, or what were you kind of talking about, or can you say?
Uh, so the third thing, like, is like simply put, it could be thought as the combination of So building, right? You can
Right.
you can build some basic building, build
Right.
some basic structure, decoration. You can put some kind of like decoration items on top of your land plot, and you can interact with certain type of like objects um, on your land plot, and also in resource node, something that you can interact with cheese and get some good. You can interact with stones and get some stone back. So yeah.
Awesome. Okay. So I've just got a few more questions, Trung. I know it's getting late for you, so and I want to be respectful of your time. So I'll hit these last ones and then we'll kind of wrap up if that's okay with you. Um,
Yeah.
so a couple of other questions that I got were, can you give any more detail on how people with a large amount of axes or large amounts of land can expect to use all of those kind of at once in the kind of play to earn concept?
So even though I enjoy playing idle games, I don't think they are. Even though I enjoy playing like idle games, I think they are only suitable for PvE games. They are completely not suitable for like social games, even like games with real economic elements. Yeah, they're completely not suitable for that. So there should be some elements for you to do your work like in a more easily way. Let's say you cannot just sit beside your computer all days, right? In order to create a resource, for example.
Right.
So there should be some way for you to do it more easily. But even so, with the huge number of Axie and land plots some of our players have, it will not be enough. And we certainly don't want to make it like an idle game in that regard. Like make you like completely free from interacting and playing the games. It's not what we want. We still want you to spend a reasonable amount of time, like reasonable and meaningful amount of time uh, in the game.
Right.
Uh, Whether it could be like gathering results or interacting with other people. So I think the end game for that should be something related to social play. So let's say if you have a lot of resources, so axes like land blocks, they could be seen as like a type of resource. So let's say if you have a lot of resource, you should be eligible for a certain role in your clan, in your build, and even in other kind of like traditional, even in other traditional games, for a very big clan, there's some people who like kind of like provide resource for the whole clan,
Yep.
and of course they will gain the reward, they will gain the benefit based on their contribution, right? Like not because you and another person are in the same clan, um, then you guys suddenly have the same amount of reward. It, it doesn't work that way, right? It
Right.
should be based on the contribution. And because of that, the way of the way for those like resource intensive people to play the game is more like interacting with others, with other people, like um, hiring really kind of like good people for their clan,
Right.
and of course like provide enough kind of like material, provide enough kind of like resource for their clan to perform really well in social activities like clan wars or something. Let's say let's assume that if we have like a clan war, then just to give an example about social activities. So so you can also see that it's kind of like a raw thought. Um, so we know about the approach, but we are not sure about that. We are not sure about all the details like 100%. So so yeah,
Yeah.
I think I only know that much to tell.
So I have to ask a follow-up question on that one, and that is the
Mhm.
guild or clan system, is that going to be something that is integrated within Axie through the Axie team itself, or is that something that is going to be established by various community members? How is that envisioned by the team?
Could you be more like specific?
Well, yeah. So for example, are there going to be like inside of
A
land?
feature of the game,
Yeah,
right?
right. Inside of land, can you join a guild that somebody has established, or is that something that's all handled outside?
So yeah, I thought about that. Even for myself, when I play games, I can see that there's some games with really nicely built clan system, so you can do like everything within the game. And for a lot of other games, like they just build a very basic system of a clan. And the only thing you can do within the game is to create a clan, see the list of member like your clan, and also like something like trade lives with with your clan members in order to have enough lives for a day to do certain quests. So but yeah, let's say if those type of games they provide some kind of coordinate the clan battle, but then they don't provide any type of communication features within the game, or they provide but like it's not enough for for clan members to communicate with each other. Then of course there could be some other type of communication, right? Um, so there's some game my clan has to make like something like a Facebook group or even like a Skype group if we can
Right.
find each other on Facebook, and then then we just
Discord
tell
groups.
each other yeah, we just tell each other. I mean, talking about other past at the time there was no Discord, so we met each other on
Oh,
Facebook,
right, right.
and then we create something like a Skype group, so we can we can talk with each other in real time for a kind of tech or something.
Yeah,
I
no,
think
I
like
mean, we
10
actually
years.
would establish our own like web bulletin board systems in order to talk to each other back in the EverQuest days and so forth. Yeah.
So yeah, uh, as a conclusion to my answer for that is that like it's a balance of both, right? Because the needs for all the needs for a clan in a complex system like the land system. I don't think we can like envision every possible hit. Uh, so it has to be a balance. Of course, we need to provide like enough features for clan, but other than that, I think people should be collaborating with each other in a much more flexible way. Like you guys should have your own Discord server maybe, and even a separate website, right? To promote your clan and also to recruit. So yeah.
Yeah. Oh, awesome. No, thank you for talking about that at all. I know all this stuff is super early, so anything you're willing to discuss, I know that everybody's excited to hear. Um,
Yeah, I think like 10 years ago, like even more than 10 years ago, like 15 years maybe, I played Javian. So if you guys are familiar with that game, I put the name in chat.
oh,
My
okay.
handle name is Baronar. So yeah, I played Javian. I think there might be some guys here. familiar with chat here.
Yeah, no, that's cool. Reels talked about it there. Yeah, that's awesome. All right, so let's see. This was another question I got that they wanted me to ask, and that was, um, it ultimately comes down to where are you at on soulbound axes? Is there a time frame for soulbound axes? And is there still any plans to implement sort of a lending or renting system for Axie
Mhm.
teams to new players?
So I think in the past we were very close to building Solar Axie, but the reason why we paused that, we stopped working on that is because so actually Solar Axies are like handcrafted materials you give to beginners, right? In order to give them a pretty like smooth onboarding experience, right?
Yeah,
So like those soulbound axes, those begin, so those starter axes have to be handcrafted according to the logic of the prominent games in the Axie ecosystem. And right now, the prominent games is the battle game, right? And because we were pretty sure that the current battle system is not good enough and we want to do better. So that's why we started working on surround axis. And so in the current design of the mega battle system, we 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 also need to take into account the design of those surround axes, like in which way we can steadily introduce beginners to different mechanics in battle. Let's say we have
right.
the buff we have like, so in the current battle system we have speed, for example, and how we can effectively and steadily introduce people to those mechanics. Of course, it will be much easier if you have a friend who play like Axie already, right? I think that that case happened with a lot of you guys. You guys introduce Axie with your friend, and, and and suddenly like your friends like have a mentor, and they could
Yeah,
be able to fall in love with the game because you guys are there to answer all of their questions, and you guys can also give them the the best way to get familiar with the game. But like for a lot of people that, let's say if you want to reach a lot of people, it's not that kind of hand holding process is not it's just not there, right?
right.
And we serve out actually with like with game tutorials and with something like handcrafted onboarding process. Uh, we, we 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 have to mimic the same experience you guys can provide to your friends. So yeah, a little bit about actually a little bit about the purpose behind about actually, and why we haven't released that.
Right. No, it's perfect. All right, man. Well, thanks again for joining me and being willing to go on the live stream here. Hopefully, we can do it again sometime fairly soon. Sure had a good time. It's great to talk with you, Trung, and thanks for your willingness to communicate with the community and answer some of these. I know some of them are tough, and some of my questions are probing because I'm wanting to know all this information too. So thank you.
Yeah, so yeah, thanks for having me. I think no, actually I don't have any hard questions today. Uh, I personally think like let's say if like 3 months ago, like 6 months ago, like 4 months ago or something, like there would be a lot of hard questions for me creatively because at the time I was not it's not so like not so firm with my research, with my thoughts. But right now, I think uh, I think we have the answer for a lot of hard problems already, and we are focusing on implementing them. So at least I have more knowledge to answer you guys.
That's wonderful. Thanks again. Thanks so much. And thanks everybody who joined the stream. Appreciate the questions that you submitted for me to ask Trung. And yeah, thanks for hanging out. Had a great time. And before we go, Trung, I just wanted to put the next slide up here. Just thank our other community content members that have done so much to support Axie
Wow.
Infinity.
Yeah.
Bunch of good guys there, huh?
Yeah.
Good stuff.
Really don't know.
Yeah, Coco and Axe and yeah, just all.
What is that? Okay, yeah. Oh, that B letter is for you, right?
Yeah, Baronar. Yeah. Yeah, that's what I've used. Yep. Awesome.
Okay.
All right, guys.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go ahead and close down the stream. Thanks again, Trung.